Thank you very much for inviting me. It's really a great honor. My name is Zang. I also go by the name Zang to make it easier for my colleagues. Yes. Okay. So I've been teaching at the UW Law School for more than 10 years. I'm going to talk about the New Silk Road in China that needs a legal bridge. So I will explain. I will start, since I came from the academic, so I'm going to give you the big picture, right? I'm sure Dr. Cooper will give you the technical details. Next please. So the One Belt, One Road initiative is very, very ambitious, very, very broad projects. Basically, there are two lines. One is on the top, that is the continental railway line, so that's the traditional Silk Road. And then there's also a maritime line coming from China to South China Sea, and then to the Indian Ocean, and then to the Middle East, and then all the way to Europe. So these two lines are the essential components of the One Belt, One Road. So next, please. For China and some of the countries participating in the One Belt, One Road, this is a kind of a revival of the old Silk Road. So there is enormous rhetoric about the glory of the past and then the future. Next, please. The One Belt, One Road is really very, very much not covered in the American media. You probably, even if you read the Wall Street Journal, as I do every day, you don't see much, right? American media largely ignores what's going on. But in May this year, this is reported, but still that we don't have a sense of the scale that China actually had a magnificent gathering of the world leaders coming to Beijing to talk about the One Belt, One Road. So to lay out more detailed plans on this. And it's also not just a project, but also financing and other arrangements. So it's extremely exciting development if you're part of that. For political reasons, the United States is not part of it. Japan is not part of it. European countries are much more involved. India is interested. Also, a lot of the countries in between Europe and China are more involved. So overall, there are 62 countries involved in the One Belt, One Road. And we're talking about billions of dollars. So next page, please. So in general, continue. So in general, the idea was developed 2013 when President Xi Jinping was visiting Southeast Asia, and he started talking about reviving the new the Silk Road. So that was the beginning. That was 2013, and then next, please. And then after the president's speech, the key regulatory agencies started developing it more and then make it a national strategy. So that's the December 2014. And then next, please. So it was in March 2015 that this was considered that after serious thought, we're going to implement this. So there's 2 years of development of this strategy. Next, please. A lot of this is infrastructure building. Railway is a big part of it, so I'm going to talk about railway because Dr. Cooper will talk more. But also it includes energy and other sectors. So China is building along the One Belt, One Road, along the railway. China is also building power plants, dams, and maybe hospitals. So we're talking about enormously large-scale infrastructure development, largely financed by China, but with the participation of the member countries. So that's why there's legal concerns that we're going to talk about. Next, please. So in the Chinese media, there's I just want to show some pictures to show the railroad development between covering linking China and Europe. Three lines. This is slightly vague. Next page will be clearer. So three lines connecting China and Europe. All these three lines are in operation. So if you are in China, you will be very excited because the major media is reporting progress every day on a regular basis, reporting, this line is opening and that line is operating. And so it's very, very, dramatic development. So next, please. It covers some of the Central Asian countries, some of the Uzbekistan. So this is a picture from the Chinese official newspaper, the People's Daily, reporting this progress, right? So next, please. Celebrating the operation of China and Europe means from Beijing to London, Beijing to Spain, Beijing to Moscow, Beijing to Germany. So all these lines are start operating. Next, please. So another report on the newspaper in the official newspaper, People's Daily. Just to impress you, if you can read Chinese, continue, please. Right. So that's something that we really need to think about. So next, please. And some of the Central Asian countries that each of these countries are getting investment from China right now. Some of the projects are already finished. One country that is interesting that is Kazakhstan. China is paying a lot of attention to, so I have slightly some information about Kazakhstan. Next, please. So China is investing billions of dollars. It didn't start from 2013. It started earlier. So one of the major investors is CITIC, Zhongxin. I worked for Zhongxin more than 20 years ago when I was in China as a lawyer. So they've been, since 2006, they've been investing billions of dollars in Kazakhstan. And for those of you who know, CITIC is a very big financial conglomerate, right? State-owned, big. They have a bank, they have a accounting firm, they have a law firm. That's the one that I work for, and covering a wide range of industries. And I was talking with Mark that he was telling me about CITIC's trade of logging with state of Washington around. That's more than 20 years ago, right? So apparently, CITIC is also very, very active in Kazakhstan. Next page, please. So they are involved in banking, securities, trust, construction, investments. More than 300 projects that in the country of Kazakhstan. And involved in 113 billions of dollars. So we're talking about a huge amount of money coming from this state-owned company in China. So next, please. Of course, along with the commercial investment development, China's political relationship with Kazakhstan is also getting closer and warmer, and the President Xi Jinping is paying a lot of visit to Kazakhstan. So this is a recent, not the latest, but one of the visits. Next, please. If you want to have a sense of the scale of investment, this is the United States involvement. Chevron approved one project in Kazakhstan that was $37 billion. So this is, in terms of amount, this is way smaller than what CITIC is doing in Kazakhstan. Next, please. So financing is a big part of the game, right? Because where does the money come from, and then how do you organize? And then this also is related to risks. Next, please. So China has all kinds of arrangements, from the very international to relatively local, means Chinese owned money. So the international side, you all heard about the AIIB, right? The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. That is China brings other Asian countries and the BRICS countries together, and then to put money together, and it is on infrastructure, right? So in that sense, it's closely linked with the One Belt One Road projects. Next, please. And they are also talking about this that the major international that would be the AIIB. In addition to AIIB, there are also this development bank among the BRICS countries. That's the Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa, right? So that development bank by BRICS that is also investor, and then Chinese own policy banks. That means not commercial banks, policy banks. That is China Development Bank is the equivalent of development bank in the West, right? And then China's Import-Export Bank. So these two are the policy banks. So they are more guided by policy than commercial interest, right? And then China's own domestic players, state-owned banks or financial institutions like CITIC. Next, please. And we are talking about large numbers, billions of dollars, right? So, and I have a list of this that policy banks, the two policy banks, they are investing $200 billion. This is reported by the official media. That Bank of China, one of the big commercial banks, investing $100 billion on 420 projects. So another big bank, state-owned, China Bank of Industry and Commerce, $337 billion. So we're really talking about big numbers. So next, please. They are also inviting the banks from the region, all the participating countries, to come to build up relationship and then set up their offices in China so that they can more closely coordinate with each other. And of course, this is also from a Western observer perspective. This is also China's own imperial building up, right? So that's not only money but also language and culture and other things, right? So this all looks very familiar. Next, please. So I'm going to try to say, since I look at this from a legal perspective, I'm going to say that because of the scale, because of the ambition behind this, there could be all kinds of risks. From a legal perspective, this can be huge financial risks. As I said, if all this go well, that's great. Great for China, great for all the participating countries, right? They got bridges and railway and the power plants and other infrastructure. This is great. For example, power plants built in Pakistan is supplying very, very precious electricity to the local residents and industry. That is very, very important, right? But if it doesn't go well, that means maybe if one of the banks, big banks in China, goes bankrupt because of this, then the trouble is not only for China, right? Because those banks are too big for the global economy. So Wall Street would inevitably have certain exposure to those financial risks. So that would be a very, very big concern. So if you're the lawyer in the bank, if you're a lawyer in Wall Street, you have to worry about this. And how? So the question is how to control the risk. So next, please. So apparently, as China is pushing more forcefully the companies to go to the One Belt One Road countries to do investment, the legal departments of the major companies are gathering together and talking about the legal risks. So they have symposium, they have discussions, they are calling out their lawyers to prepare, for example, to study the laws of those member countries, right? To have a better sense of, if I put $100 billion in your country, what happens if there's a revolution, right? So they need to, and my argument is that they probably need to do a lot more work. Next page, please. one recent example is that this is reported by the Japanese newspaper Nikkei, that in February this year, that China won a very, after enormous competition with Japan, they won the high-speed rail project in Indonesia. But shortly after the project started, because the land price along the railway line starts to go up, right? And then the local property owners started asking for higher compensation, right? There's no surprise, right? So they protested, and then they stopped the project. So this is the kind of risks that we're talking about, right? And this is real. So next page, please. So in order to explain the legal bridge, what do I mean the legal bridge? What China can do, and perhaps also my interest is coming from an American university, American academic institution perspective. I care about American possible industries involvement, right? I care about the legal control of the risks, and I also want to be more involved in the China's One Belt One Road. So one way to look at this is through a specific case, because in law school we all discuss cases, right? The case method. So this is a U.S. case. This is decided in New York by the Second Circuit Court, so the equivalent of the Ninth Circuit Court here in state of Washington, right? So so this is a from the bottom. So the BTA Bank is a state-owned bank in Kazakhstan, and then the SK Fund is a state wealth fund owned by the state in Kazakhstan, right? And so SK Fund is the major shareholder of the bank, right? And then they sell debts to investors, right? So the top two investors, Atlantica and Baltica, they are investment institutions registered in Panama, owned by American investors, right? So this is the financial operation, right? So assuming you are a rich investor based in New York, right? So you register Atlantica in Panama and use that vehicle to buy securities issued by BTA Bank, right? So this is typical, right? And then what happened is that, not surprising at all, the BTA Bank and SK Fund, in their securities documentation, had misleading information, right? So from a U.S. securities law perspective, this is a violation of the Securities Exchange Act, Section 10. You are supposed to provide true information to your investors. You owe a fiduciary duty to your investors, right? So any wrong information, misleading information, that can be potentially a liability, right? So investors sued in the federal court in New York, right? So the question became, is that a violation? Is that a misleading statement, right? Under the Securities Exchange Act, right? And then in order to solve this, the judge have to figure out that if there's a fraud, if there's misleading statement, that misleading statement was made outside the United States, right? So whether the U.S. law, U.S. federal law, can govern such an issue that happened outside the United States is one legal issue you have to overcome, right? And that is not too difficult. So the second question is this. These SK Fund and BTA Bank, they are state-owned banks, financial institutions, which means they are part of the Kazakhstan government, right? What kind of privilege do governments have in the typical diplomatic and legal world? immunity, right? It's very, very in our daily life. It's very, very hard to sue the government for damages, liabilities, right? For example, it's very hard to sue public hospital. It's also very hard to sue University of Washington, right? So governments, when they are doing what they are supposed to do, they have immunity, which means they are immune from liabilities, legal liabilities, right? So of course, if you are the lawyer for BTA and SK Fund, you will claim immunity, right? We are part of the Kazakhstan government, right? But in federal law, first of all, should the bank enjoy complete immunity? What's your no, right? No. And right? And why? Why? Risky, so not good for the investors. Yeah. Okay, and what else?
Well, if they said something that wasn't true, then they are liable.
Right. Okay. And so that's the. And any other reasons that you can think of? Okay. So
investors have a right to their own property, their own financial property.
Yes. So we put all this together. We're getting close, right? So in the Federal Statute of 1976, Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act. This is a federal law. It says that government should enjoy. This is diplomacy, right? Should enjoy immunity, but with exceptions, right? One exception being that if you are a government, but you are doing commerce. You are just like other people participating in the market. You are not going to get the immunity, right? So you are the governor. You come out of your office. You come to buy a sandwich. You got to pay for it. You cannot enjoy immunity, right? So that's the idea. Right? That's called commerce exception, right? And that is clearly regulated, provided by the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act, right? So the court, this is 2016 decision. So the court, based on that legal rule, and then the cases decided before this 2016 decision, said that even if you are owned by state-owned by the government, but you cannot claim sovereign immunity, right? So based on that, the court found liability, and therefore, could protect the investors, right? So next, please. So that was the U.S. law, right? Because the Second Circuit, based in New York has been the financial center for a long, long time. Therefore, the legal infrastructure is very well developed. So this all, based on a lot of cases, many years of experiences, right? China, if this happened in China, or if this is like, remember those big projects, chances are that the Chinese company's CITIC is state-owned, right? Chances are the Chinese banks, when they come to Kazakhstan, they probably collaborate with the big state-owned banks, companies there. So when they have a dispute, right? You didn't pay the bill, or you were not faithful, you were not honest, right? So things like that, very, very normal, right? Then the legal issue is, does Kazakhstan have the similar rule, right? Does China have the similar rule? Because Chinese banks may issue securities in order to raise the money, right? Either to Chinese-owned investors or maybe to us, right? So when a misleading statement happens, which is not surprising in the market at all, whether China's legal infrastructure can protect the investors or not. If not, then we got a problem, right? So in that sense, unfortunately at this stage, China is very, very, very protective about sovereignty. Chinese own legal theory is that if it is sovereign, then you cannot touch it. We want to have the absolute immunity. China's own legal scholars are debating about, how we should update our law, right? But they need to convince their leaders to explain that what is happening in other countries' legal system in order to convince their leaders that to adopt this notion, right? So that they need to work very, very hard. And also perhaps that is something that we as an American institution can work with China, can be part of that so that we can develop a better legal structure to protect investors either outside China or inside China. So in that sense, I don't see a competition, rather I see enormous opportunities to collaborate. So thank you very much.